In the heart of Ashwood, Pennsylvania, where the Susquehanna River carved its ancient path through hills cloaked in autumn's amber and crimson, the air held a quiet that felt alive, heavy with secrets waiting to spill. It was October 2018, and the town, nestled in a valley where whispers traveled faster than the wind, was about to be torn apart. Ethan and Caleb Mitchell, identical twins, were Ashwood's pride, two men so alike that their laughter, their hazel eyes, their crooked grins were like a single soul split in two. Born minutes apart, they'd shared everything: secrets, dreams, the weight of a childhood spent dodging their father's fists and their mother's silences. To the world, they were indistinguishable, their bond a fortress no one could breach. But beneath their mirrored exteriors, a single difference pulsed, a secret so subtle it would unravel a murder, a betrayal, and a truth that would grip the nation. The night it all began, the sky was a bruise, heavy with the threat of rain. Ethan, the quieter twin, stood on the porch of their modest two-story home on Maple Street, a chipped mug of coffee cooling in his hands. The air was crisp, scented with pine and the faint tang of wood smoke. He was waiting for Caleb, who'd promised to swing by after a late shift at the auto shop. They'd planned to hit the Rusty Anchor, their dive bar haven, to drown the week in cheap beer and bad jukebox tunes. But Caleb never made it. Instead, sirens shattered the stillness, red and blue lights pulsing like a heartbeat gone wild. Squad cars screeched to a halt, and Ethan's stomach dropped as officers stormed the yard, their boots heavy on the gravel. They dragged Caleb from the house, his wrists cuffed, his face a mask of defiance and something else, fear. The charge was murder. Sarah Whitaker, Ashwood's beloved high school teacher, had been found dead in the woods, a single bullet through her heart. The evidence was a guillotine, Caleb's fingerprints on the murder weapon, his DNA on a cigarette butt near her body, and a witness, old Mr. Harrow, swearing he saw Caleb's silhouette fleeing the forest at dusk. Ashwood turned on Caleb like a pack of wolves. The town, once warmed by his easy charm, his volunteer hours at the community center, his knack for fixing cars for free, now saw a monster. Whispers became shouts. How could he? Sarah was an angel. Ethan watched, helpless, as his brother's name was smeared across diner conversations, church pews, and front-page headlines. The Ashwood Gazette ran a photo of Caleb in cuffs, his head bowed, and the caption burned into Ethan's mind: "Local man charged in brutal slaying of beloved teacher." Ethan wanted to scream, to shake the town awake. Caleb wasn't a killer. He couldn't be. That night, the twins had been together at the Rusty Anchor, laughing over beers, trading stories about the time they'd swapped places to fool their high school principal. They'd stayed until 2 a.m., the jukebox blaring Springsteen's Born to Run, the bartender, Marty, pouring them one last round. The alibi was airtight, or it should have been. The trial was a circus, a spectacle that drew reporters from Philly and Pittsburgh, their cameras flashing like vultures circling a corpse. Ethan took the stand, his voice trembling but steady, recounting every detail: the sticky bar counter, Marty's gravelly laugh, the neon glow of the Anchor's sign. He looked at Caleb, sitting at the defense table, his eyes hollow but unyielding. The prosecutor, Diane Voss, was a shark in a tailored suit, her questions cutting like blades. "Twins stick together, don't they, Mr. Mitchell?" She sneered, her voice dripping with contempt. "You'd say anything to save your brother, wouldn't you?" The jury, 12 strangers with tired eyes, ate it up. Ethan's words, his truth, were dismissed as loyalty, not fact. The evidence was too strong. The fingerprints, the DNA, Mr. Harrow's shaky but certain testimony. Caleb's defense attorney, a public defender named Greg Holt with a rumpled tie and a losing streak, couldn't break the prosecution's case. The gavel fell like a thunderclap, life without parole. Caleb's eyes met Ethan's in that final moment, a silent plea buried in their depths. "Don't give up on me." Ethan's guilt was a living thing. A beast that clawed his insides as he drove home alone, the radio off, the silence deafening. Why hadn't he fought harder? Why hadn't the jury believed him? He replayed every moment of the trial, every glance Caleb had given him, every word left unsaid. Caleb hadn't just been calm during the verdict, he'd been resolute, as if he'd known this was coming. Ethan's mind snagged on a memory, a late-night call months before the murder. Caleb's voice low, urgent, saying, "I need to tell you something, but not now." Ethan had brushed it off, assuming it was another of Caleb's half-started confessions about a bad bet or a bar fight. Now, that call haunted him. Caleb was protecting someone. And Ethan could feel it, a truth buried deep, and he'd be damned if he let his brother rot for it. The plan was born in the haze of sleepless nights, whiskey burning Ethan's throat as he stared at old photos of him and Caleb kids on bikes, teens at prom, adults toasting at their mother's funeral. The twins had always been masters of the switch, a childhood game that fooled teachers, friends, even their father once, when Caleb took Ethan's beating for a broken window. Their faces were identical, their voices a perfect echo, their mannerisms polished from years of practice. But this wasn't a prank. This was Ashwood Correctional Facility, a maximum security prison where guards carried tasers and inmates carried grudges. Ethan threw himself into preparation, studying Caleb like a role he was born to play. He memorized his brother's slang. Yo, instead of hey, a drawl on certain vowels, his slouch, his habit of cracking his knuckles when nervous. He stole prison blueprints from a courthouse archive, bribing a clerk with $500 he didn't have. He learned guard rotations, inmate hierarchies, the rhythm of a place where time was both enemy and currency. The swap would happen on a visitation day, a narrow window when the guards' eyes were distracted, their vigilance dulled by routine. November 12, 2018, was gray and cold, the sky a slab of slate over Ashwood. Ethan signed in as Caleb's visitor, his hands steady despite the storm in his chest. The visitation room was sterile, buzzing with fluorescent lights, smelling of bleach and despair. Caleb looked different, thinner, his cheekbones sharp, his eyes carrying a weight Ethan didn't recognize. They sat across a scratched metal table, separated by a low partition. The guards, bored and underpaid, barely glanced their way. Twins, after all, were just two faces of the same man. Ethan slid a folded note under the table. Bathroom 10 minutes. Caleb's nod was almost imperceptible. In a cramped stall, they moved like shadows, silent and swift. Ethan slipped into Caleb's orange jumpsuit, the fabric rough, smelling faintly of sweat and institutional soap. Caleb took Ethan's jacket, a faded denim number, and pulled a cap low over his eyes. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. A shared look, a clasp of hands, and Caleb walked out, signing Ethan's name on the visitor log. Ethan, now Caleb, stepped back into the prison, his heart a war drum. The prison was a labyrinth of concrete and steel, a world where every clank of a gate was a warning, every glance a potential threat. Ethan kept his head down, mimicking Caleb's swagger, a loose, confident stride that said, "I belong here." But inside he was drowning. The air was thick with tension, the shouts of inmates echoing off walls, the guards' boots clicking like a metronome. He ate in the mess hall, forcing down gray meat and watery potatoes, his eyes scanning for allies, for enemies, for answers. Caleb had been popular here, his charm a shield. But Ethan wasn't Caleb. He stumbled over slang, hesitated at the wrong moments. A guard, Officer Malone, squinted at him during roll call, noting the way Caleb held his pen too neat. Too careful, Ethan cursed himself. Caleb's scrawl was messy, all loops and slashes. He'd have to practice. His lifeline was Razor, a wiry inmate with a scar like a crescent moon across his cheek, earned in a fight he wouldn't talk about. Razor was a broker of secrets, trading information for cigarettes, favors, or protection. Ethan approached him in the yard, offering a pack of Marlboros he'd smuggled in. "Heard you know things," Ethan said, pitching his voice to match Caleb's drawl. Razor's eyes narrowed, but he took the bait. Over weeks he fed Ethan scraps. Sarah Whitaker had been digging into Vincent Cole, a local businessman whose car dealerships and charity galas hid a darker empire. Sarah, with her teacher's salary and stubborn streak, had uncovered Vincent's ties to offshore accounts, money laundering, a syndicate that stretched from Ashwood to Philly. She'd been a threat, Razor said, and someone had silenced her. But why Caleb? Razor's smirk was a blade. "Ask your brother." Outside, Caleb was a ghost in Ethan's life. He couldn't go home, too many eyes, too many questions. He rented a motel room on the edge of town, cash only, under the name John Carter. The room was a dive, with stained carpets and a flickering TV, but it was a base. Caleb's first move was Sarah's apartment, still sealed with yellow tape. He slipped in at night, picking the lock with a skill he'd learned as a teen. Under the floorboards, he found a metal box, locked but flimsy. Inside, a treasure trove. Files, bank records, handwritten notes in Sarah's neat cursive. Vincent. Cole's name was everywhere: shell companies, coded transactions, a ledger linking him to a syndicate called the Blackthorn Group. Sarah had been building a case, maybe for the FBI, maybe for a journalist brave enough to take it. But the setup baffled Caleb. His fingerprints on the gun, his DNA at the scene, it was too perfect, too personal. Someone had known him, studied him, used his identity like a weapon. Ethan's days in prison were a tightrope walk. He learned the rules fast. Don't look too long, don't talk too much, don't show fear. He mimicked Caleb's laugh, his quick retorts, but cracks appeared. Officer Malone caught him writing a request form, his handwriting too precise. "You learn calligraphy in here, Mitchell." Malone grunted, eyes sharp. Ethan laughed it off, but his stomach churned. In the yard, a brute named Tank, all muscle and menace, tested him. "Caleb, don't flinch." Tank growled when Ethan ducked during a brawl. Whispers spread something was off. Ethan needed answers, and Razor was his only shot. Over a smuggled bottle of prison hoach, Razor dropped a name: Lena. Vincent's. Fixer, a woman with no last name, no face, just a reputation for making problems disappear. She'd planted the evidence, Razor said, but proving it was impossible. Lena was a ghost, her tracks covered by money and fear. Ethan scrawled a coded note: Lena, warehouse. Midnight, and paid Razor to smuggle it out to Caleb. It was a risk, but time was bleeding away. Caleb, in the free world, was a man on fire. He followed Sarah's files, tracking Vincent's dealings, to a paper trail that led to a warehouse on Ashwood's outskirts. He staked it out, hiding in a rusted pickup, watching men in suits come and go, their faces hard, their cars too clean for a backwater town. The files pointed to a meeting, a deal with the Blackthorn Group, and Lena's name was there, buried. In a coded email, Caleb's gut twisted. He'd heard that name before, not from Razor, but from his mother, years ago. In a drunken confession about a daughter she'd given up. Lena, their half-sister, born when their mother was 16, raised in foster homes, a secret the twins had only half believed. Caleb had found her a year ago, tracked her down in Philly, hoping to rebuild something broken. She'd been cold, distant, but he'd kept her secret, even from Ethan. Now it was a betrayal. The truth crashed like a wave. Caleb broke into the warehouse expecting a stranger, but found Lena tall, sharp-eyed, her features a warped mirror of their mother's. "You," he whispered, his voice breaking. Lena's smile was a blade. "You had family," she said. "I had nothing." She'd framed Caleb, knowing their identical DNA would seal the case, knowing his loyalty would keep him silent. She worked for Vincent, her lover, her king, and Sarah's digging had threatened his empire. Caleb had taken the fall, hoping Lena would come clean, hoping blood meant something. It didn't. Lena drew a gun, her hand steady, but Caleb was faster, twisting it away as police lights flashed outside. He'd tipped the FBI, using Sarah's files to expose Vincent's empire. Lena's confession, caught on a recorder hidden. In his jacket was the key. She'd planted the evidence, used Caleb's life as a pawn. In prison, Ethan was cornered. Tank and his crew, tipped off by Vincent's men, knew he wasn't Caleb. A shiv flashed in the yard, slicing Ethan's side before he stumbled into a supply closet, blood seeping through his jumpsuit. He was trapped, his cover blown, his life hanging by a thread. Razor, sensing the tide turning, flipped. Vincent's empire was crumbling, the FBI raiding his properties, his name plastered across CNN. Razor smuggled Ethan's evidence, a scrap of Lena's handwriting from a deal, passed to him in a desperate moment, to the authorities. It was enough. The truth unraveled. Caleb was innocent, framed by a sister he'd tried to save. The twins switched back, Ethan slipping out as Caleb was exonerated, their bond forged in fire but scarred by betrayal. Ashwood reeled. The town, so quick to condemn, grappled with its shame. Lena faced trial, her secrets laid bare in a courtroom packed with reporters. Vincent's syndicate collapsed, his name a synonym for corruption. Ethan and Caleb rebuilt, step by painful step, their lives forever marked by the sister they'd lost and the truth they'd uncovered. They moved to a new town, leaving Ashwood's whispers behind, but the story followed them. YouTube channels retold the saga, videos soaring past 200 million views, fueled by hooks, the daring twin swap, the prison gamble, the sister twist. Comments exploded. Their sister framed him? Ethan's courage is insane. Caleb's silence broke my heart. The narrative, sprawling and raw, gripped listeners with its suspense, its moral complexity, its unrelenting pace. A tale of brotherhood, sacrifice, and a truth that shook the world. Hey there, love our content? Hit that like button, share with your friends, and subscribe for more awesome videos. Don't forget to tap the bell to stay updated. Thanks for joining us.